At 12 seconds, the man looked away. And nobody who saw it ever forgot. The film set in Burbank, 1973. Golden Harvest Studios renting space from Warner Brothers for a low-budget martial arts production. Hot California afternoon. Crew breaking for lunch. Equipment scattered across the backlit. Cameras on dollies, coiled cables, wooden set pieces stacked against walls. Bruce Lee stood near the craft services table, drinking water, still wearing his training clothes from the morning's choreography session. Black fitted shirt. Dark pants. No shoes. He was smaller than people expected when they met him in person. 5 feet 7 inches, maybe 135 pounds soaking wet. Wiry. Compact. Nothing that screamed movie star to the uninformed eye. The Union Strongman was twice his size. His name was Eddie Kovacs. IATSE Local 728 representative. 6'3". 260 pounds. Former college football player who'd blown out his knee and found work as a grip in Hollywood. He'd been on hundreds of sets. Worked with everyone. Seen it all. And he had opinions about martial arts movies. Loud opinions. Fake as hell. Eddie announced to the crew gathered for lunch, his voice carrying across the backlit. Wire work and camera tricks. These kung fu guys couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag in a real situation. A few crew members glanced nervously toward where Bruce stood. Bruce didn't react. Didn't turn. Just kept drinking his water. Eddie noticed the looks. Noticed Bruce. And made a decision that would define the next 12 seconds of his life. The Union Strongman laughed at Bruce Lee and issued a challenge. In 12 seconds everything was over and the man looked away. Hey Lee! Eddie called out, walking toward him with that particular swagger of a big man who'd never been seriously challenged. You hear what I said? About the wire work? Bruce turned slowly. Set down his water bottle. Looked at Eddie with those dark, penetrating eyes that seemed to calculate everything in an instant. I heard you, Bruce said quietly. So what do you say? You want to show me some of that movie magic? Prove it's not all camera angles and editing? The backlit went silent. 30 crew members stopped eating, stopped talking, all eyes on the confrontation developing between the slight martial artist and the mountain of a man towering over him. Bruce didn't smile. Didn't frown. Just studied Eddie for a long moment. You sure you want to do this? Bruce asked, his voice still calm, almost gentle. Eddie laughed. What, you gonna hit me with your 1-inch punch? That parlor trick? He looked around at the crew, playing to the audience. Yeah, I'm sure. Show me what you got, movie star. Bruce nodded once. Okay. But we need a witness. And we need rules. Rules? Eddie scoffed. Sure, whatever you want. Bruce didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Bruce gestured to the assistant director, a man named Frank Shin who'd worked with Bruce on previous productions. Frank, you'll time this. Eddie, here are the rules. You can use any hold, any grip, any position you want. Your goal is to make me submit, or to move me from this spot. Bruce tapped his foot on the concrete. This exact spot. Eddie's grin widened. That's it. And what do you do? I stand here, Bruce said simply. And I don't move. You don't fight back? I respond. But I don't move from this spot. And I don't strike you. The crew was murmuring now. This didn't make sense. Eddie outweighed Bruce by more than 100 pounds. He was a trained athlete. This seemed like suicide. Eddie cracked his knuckles. How long do I get? How long do you need? Bruce asked. Give me a minute. Hell, give me 30 seconds. Take as long as you want, Bruce said. Frank will time it. When you're done, or when you give up, we stop. Frank Shin pulled out his stopwatch. The crew formed a loose circle around them, nobody touching their lunch, everybody sensing they were about to witness something. Ready? Frank asked. Eddie rolled his shoulders, bouncing on his feet like a boxer. Bruce stood perfectly still, hands at his sides, weight centered, breathing slow and even. "Ready," Eddie said. "Begin," Frank called, clicking the stopwatch. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. Eddie moved fast for a big man. He lunged forward, reaching for Bruce with both hands, trying to grab him in a bear hug. His strategy was simple. Wrap up the smaller man, use his superior size and strength to crush him or drive him backward off that spot. Second one. Bruce's body shifted. Not a step. Not a movement of his feet. Just a rotation of his hips, a turn of his shoulders. Eddie's hands closed on empty air. His momentum carried him forward, stumbling slightly. Second two. Eddie recovered, spun back around. Tried a different approach. He dropped low, shot for Bruce's legs, a wrestling takedown. If he couldn't grab the upper body, he'd take out the base. Bruce's stance widened fractionally. His hands came down, not swinging, just guiding. When Eddie's shoulder made contact with Bruce's thigh, something happened that defied physics to everyone watching. Eddie bounced off. Not pushed. Not struck. Just redirected. Like water flowing around a rock. Eddie's 260-pound frame somehow couldn't budge the 135-pound man standing calmly in front of him. Second four. Eddie was breathing hard now, frustrated. He stood up, tried again. This time he just grabbed, both hands on Bruce's shoulders, trying to use pure strength to shove him backward. Bruce's hands came up, positioned over Eddie's wrists. Not grabbing. Not squeezing. Just resting there. Second six. Eddie pushed with everything he had. His face reddened. Veins stood out on his neck. His arms trembled with effort. Bruce didn't move. His feet stayed planted on that exact spot. His expression remained calm, almost sympathetic. Second eight. Something changed in Eddie's eyes. The confidence drained away. He wasn't just failing to move Bruce, he was realizing that Bruce was allowing him to try. That every ounce of strength Eddie possessed was being absorbed, redirected, neutralized without Bruce even appearing to exert effort. Second 10. Eddie tried one more thing. He released Bruce's shoulders and threw a wild haymaker punch. Breaking his own agreement, desperation overriding pride. Bruce's hand moved. Not fast. Just precise. His palm met Eddie's fist before it traveled 6 inches. Contact lasted maybe a tenth of a second. Then Bruce's hand was back at his side. Eddie's punch stopped completely. His forward momentum died. His arm dropped to his side. Second 12. Eddie turned his head to the right. Looked away. Couldn't meet Bruce's eyes anymore. Time! Frankchen called out, though his voice was barely above a whisper. 12 seconds. The backlit was completely silent. Bruce stood in the exact same spot, his feet never having moved, his breathing still slow and even. Eddie stood 3 feet away, head turned, shoulders slumped, the fight completely gone from him. "Thank you for the demonstration," Bruce said quietly. He wasn't being sarcastic. His tone carried genuine respect. "You're strong, Eddie. Very strong. But strength without understanding is just force. Force can be redirected." Eddie still couldn't look at him. Bruce stepped forward, the first time he'd moved his feet since the challenge began. He placed a hand gently on Eddie's massive shoulder. "You want to learn?" Bruce asked. Eddie's head turned slowly back toward Bruce. His eyes were wet. "Learn what?" "How to use your strength with understanding. How to make 260 pounds feel like 400. How to move without moving. How to control without crushing. You teach me? If you want to learn, I'll teach you. But first you have to understand something." "What?" "Fighting isn't about winning. It's about understanding. Understanding yourself, understanding your opponent, understanding the moment. You just learned something in 12 seconds that some people never learn in a lifetime." Away from the cameras, Bruce made a choice no one expected. The crew started to disperse, talking in hushed voices about what they'd just witnessed. Bruce led Eddie to a quiet corner of the lot, near a stack of wooden crates. "Sit," Bruce said. They sat. The giant former football player and the slight martial artist. Eddie looked at his hands, hands that had pushed and pulled and struck and accomplished nothing. "I don't understand," Eddie said finally. "How did you do that? I couldn't move you. I hit you and it was like hitting a wall." "You didn't hit a wall," Bruce corrected gently. "You hit your own force coming back to you. I didn't stop your punch. Your punch stopped itself. That doesn't make sense." "No," Bruce agreed. "Not yet. But it will. Tell me something, Eddie. Why did you challenge me?" Eddie was quiet for a long moment. "Because I thought it was all fake. Because I've worked on sets for 10 years and I've seen the wires and the tricks and the editing. Because I thought you were just another actor pretending to be tough. And now? Now I don't know what I saw." Bruce smiled for the first time. "You saw physics. You saw leverage. You saw timing and positioning and understanding of force vectors. You saw 30 years of training distilled into 12 seconds. But most importantly, you saw yourself." "Saw myself?" "You saw what happens when ego attacks technique. When force attacks understanding. When size attacks precision. The result is always the same." Eddie looked at the ground. "I made a fool of myself." "No," Bruce said firmly. "You showed courage. It takes courage to challenge someone. It takes even more courage to accept what you learn from losing. Most men would have walked away angry, making excuses. You're still here. That tells me you're ready to learn." But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. For the next 6 weeks, during lunch breaks and after shooting wrapped, Bruce Lee taught Eddie Kovacs. Not kung fu. Not movie choreography. But principles. Understanding. How to feel force before it arrives. How to redirect energy instead of opposing it. How to use 260 pounds of muscle with the precision of a surgeon instead of the bluntness of a hammer. The crew watched the transformation. Eddie stopped swaggering. Started moving differently, more conscious, more controlled. When he lifted equipment, he used less effort and accomplished more. When he worked with other grips, he became gentler, more precise. One afternoon, 5 weeks into this informal apprenticeship, a younger grip, a cocky 23-year-old named Danny, started mocking the martial arts choreography being filmed. Same jokes Eddie had made. Same dismissive attitude. Eddie walked over calmly. "You want to test it?" he asked. Danny laughed. "Test what? The fake fighting? Test whether it's fake." "Come on. I'll stand right here. You try to move me." The crew gathered, recognizing the echo of that day 6 weeks ago. Bruce watched from across the lot, saying nothing. Danny tried for 45 seconds. Pushing, pulling, grabbing, leveraging. He outweighed Eddie by nothing, but he was young and strong and determined. He couldn't budge him. When Danny finally gave up, frustrated and confused, Eddie said exactly what Bruce had said. "You want to learn?" The transformation spread. By the time filming wrapped, 7 crew members were meeting with Bruce during breaks, learning principles instead of techniques, understanding instead of moves. On the last day of production, Eddie approached Bruce in the parking lot. He was carrying something, a wooden crate about 2 feet square. "I made this," Eddie said, setting it down. "For you." Bruce looked at the crate. It was beautifully crafted, dovetail joints, smooth finish. On the lid, burned into the wood, were 3 words. 12 seconds changed everything. "Open it," Eddie said. Inside was a photograph. The only photograph anyone had taken that day on the backlit. Shot by a set photographer who'd been passing through. It showed Bruce standing calmly, Eddie's hands on his shoulders, Eddie's face contorted with effort, Bruce looking almost sympathetic. Below the photograph, Eddie had mounted a small brass plate with an engraving. "On this day I learned that true strength is not measured in pounds but in understanding. Thank you for the lesson. EK. Bruce looked at the photograph for a long time. This moment embarrassed you. Why do you want to remember it? Because it's the moment I stopped being a strong man and started becoming strong, Eddie said. That's worth remembering. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. Bruce kept that wooden crate in his office until the day he died. When Linda Lee inventoried his possessions after his death in 1973, just 3 months after that film wrapped, she found it prominently displayed on his desk. She called Eddie to tell him. He came to the house, saw the crate in its place of honor, and cried. At Bruce's funeral, Eddie Kovacs stood in the back, a mountain of a man among the celebrities and students and family. When people asked him later how he knew Bruce Lee, he would tell them about 12 seconds on a backlit in Burbank. He could have humiliated me, Eddie would say. He could have hurt me. He could have made me look like a fool in front of everyone. Instead, he taught me. That's who Bruce Lee was. Not a fighter. A teacher. The wooden crate now sits in the Bruce Lee Foundation archives. Next to it is a photograph, not the one from inside the crate, but another one, taken 6 weeks later. It shows Bruce demonstrating a principle to 7 crew members sitting in a circle around him. Eddie Kovacs is front and center, notebook in his lap, listening with complete attention. 12 seconds changed everything. Not because Bruce Lee proved he couldn't be moved, but because he proved that the strongest victories don't require violence, only understanding, patience, and the willingness to turn an opponent into a student.